web introduction to the information specialist system. We have Wagner with us today in the studio, and before I turn it over to him, just a couple housekeeping pieces. If you have questions about content, we ask that you put those in the Q&A box. If you have questions regarding anything technical, sound, I will do my best to help you with those if you'll submit those through the chat box. With that, I will turn it over to Matt.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Wagner. I'm the Information Specialist Statewide Lead. For those who may not know, I took over the position on September the 1st and have worked the last few months just in developing policy, procedure, and working currently with the information specialists that we have. Today's presentation is going to focus basically on two main points. I'll give an overview of the information specialist system, of what we consider a Tier 4 consumer, and then we'll move into the transfers and transitions in and out of the process. So the first slide you see, it identifies what the 4 tiers are in the state of Missouri. The top tier being individuals that participate in our Medicaid waiver. They have funding identified through one waivers. The second is general revenue. So these are individuals who are typically participating usually in an autism project funded service. They have dollars attached to their budget, but they're necessarily participating in a waiver. Tier 3 individuals are folks that do participate and have a service and a benefit through the Medicaid system, but do not have any type of dollars, be it general revenue, and again, waivered services attached to their budget. And finally, Tier 4, which we call the information specialist folks, those individuals who do not have a relationship with Medicaid and do not have any type of funding associated with their budget, be it general revenue, typically through the autism project. Sometimes it's good to just identify who the people are when we hear the terminology being spoken. What does that really mean? As of yesterday, and I will tell you that this list of counties is not complete as of even yesterday, but this is kind of an identifier of the cases that are participating in that we have the Tier 4. Central Missouri has Callaway, Carroll, Crawford, Iron, Washington. Kansas City actually has Platte. Discussion, obviously we're trying to confer. There are some other counties identified. You have Sykes office. You've got Bollinger, Butler, Carter, Ripley, and Douglas. Springfield, well, and so Springfield has Douglas and Wright, and through St. Louis, Jefferson, Lincoln, Montgomery, St. Charles, St. Louis County, and Warren. So, unfortunately, things are fluid because counties will come in and counties will go out of being and not participating, in some sort of a service. 19 to 22 counties. Rough estimate, the number of consumers we serve out of those is over 3,000. Basics of the information specialist system. There are 6 full-time staff across the state. They are located in 5 regional offices, Kansas City, and the number you'll see is how many staff are located or domiciled. Kansas City has 1. Currently, Kat Salmon is the information specialist out of the Kansas City regional office. As today, our position in Springfield is vacant. Central Missouri has Darby Franklin. Sykeston has Lori Copeland, and St. Louis, as you'll see, has 2 positions identified. At this point in time, there's only 1 position filled, TA, more the individual who fills one of those positions at this point in time. At this point in time, we have 2 main forms of communication. You can either communicate with an information specialist via the email that's identified there, information.specialist@dmh.mo.gov. That email is a standalone email box that myself and the information specialists and some other folks have access to, and are provided this information typically at the time of intake. They're provided a voicemail, toll line. It is not manned. Is a voicemail that they can call, leave a message. Then information specialists are notified that a voicemail has come in, and they can communicate with the family or the individual making the call. Provide supports to local PAC for the so any type of autism projects, the information specialists are going to provide some technical assistance as a function as well. So the big point, and you'll see it bolded, is that each IS staff provides services and supports across the state, not solely to the regional office they're housed in. So a good example is T, and then another individual will be their St. Louis region, but their job function is not to provide information specialist services solely to the folks in St. Louis. Each information specialist provides services across the state. So that's kind of been a difficult concept for all of us to grab hold of, because it's not something that we typically do. So we'll catch ourselves going, having to start our mindset and our thinking, and realize that an individual working out of the Kansas City region may take a call or an email from somebody in Sykeston, and they'll handle that for that individual. So it's all across the state, not solely just to the regional office they're domiciled in. How do you get into the information specialist system? Our primary referral source, intake and assessment. Staff through the application, the intake, the application, the eligibility process, individuals that are determined eligible, same criteria for eligibility for someone with might be assigned to information specialist as someone who might be assigned into case management. The eligibility criteria is the same. We don't have a lesser or a greater criteria for them to meet for eligibility. So once an individual has been determined eligible, intake and assessment staff identify the counties that we've discussed and make direct referrals from these into intake assessment. There's a referral form that we've created for intake and assessment staff to utilize to forward to information specialist email box. The information specialist staff that's on duty for the day that it comes in, process it, and make contact with the family or the individual to identify what supports and how we can help. So I staff at that time always make direct contact with the consumer or the responsible party. We can make contact through, we prefer to make contact by phone. We prefer to put a voice on a living, breathing person, individual, that there's a measure of connection with division. We discuss their needs, their supports, and their areas of concern. What specialists do is, in our name, identify what information is out there to help support them. The other look at, and one of the main functions we're going to look at, is we're going to follow up on the status of Medicaid application, and we're going to assist in finalizing and submitting the application upon completion. So we have a great relationship with with intake and assessment, who have in a lot of ways begun the process typically with families. Intake has a very strict timeline on how the eligibility process should be handled, and it can't be held up based upon a Medicaid application. So there's a mechanism built into our transfer process so that information specialists will know where that individual is in the Medicaid application process, so that we can pick it up and that the transition is as seamless as is possible. Provide resource articles and other sources as needed. Great relationship and a contract with UMKC, and we're going to be expanding that relationship in the very near future, utilizing those resources to a greater extent for in families, but especially for folks that are in the information specialist system. If there is a desire to receive coverage service through the MOKID and to receive a MOKID slot, the staff will actually write the ISP, they'll conduct the level of care, the prioritization of need, and they'll submit the completed packet to the Fed Programs Unit for final review and approval. So that individual is Darcy Franklin out of Central Missouri. One in the information specialist system who wants to get a MOKID slot will Darcy through basically until it's approved. Once the slot has been approved and assigned, then the individual will be transitioned back to their home county to receive support coordination. For everybody's information, this is, and kind of knowledge of what's going on, this is the information specialist referral form. This document was created back in the summer. Again, the kind of soft handoff from intake into information specialist. The document merges off of the Excel document that was created that most intake and assessment staff utilize. So the fill form. So we're not creating additional work for in-assessment staff, but it just identifies the date of the referral, the individual's basic demographic information, who are their responsible party, what regional office do they come from, what county are they in. We want to know if they have an email address because we want to communicate with families both by phone or by email. We know what the reason for the referral was because it's great to not have to have families retell their story over and over. We want to know what Medicaid status at time of intake, so when they first came in, and what was their Medicaid status at the time of eligibility. So knowing that at intake they were provided an application, they've completed it, we've submitted it, and at the time of eligibility we're just waiting on a response. It gives us a lot of information so we can better support the families if we're assisting them in that MoHealthNet process. Of misunderstandings, and I'm sure that we'll kind of face these one as we move through the process, especially since this is brand new and never done it that we know of. So we things on a daily basis that we just couldn't plan for. So IS staff don't carry a caseload. Each one covers the email and the voicemail boxes on a regularly scheduled basis, a day or two a week. Once we're staffed, it won't be quite so rigorous, and you'll hear shouts of joy from IS staff right now because sometimes they're pulling double duty. IS staff will address concerns and issues as they can, but no one is specifically assigned to a specific individual. 6 individuals covering 3,000 people, that would be a pretty significant caseload. And so we're going to work with families as needs arise. Each staff has an area of expertise in which they work. So kind of ideas of what that means is we've got kind of our expert in MoHealthNet and the application process. Darcy's expertise is MOKID. So we're applying some strong points and we're utilizing those of our state and to our constituents. Stated previously, IS staff serve the entire state, not simply the region within which they're domiciled. So then the rest of the presentation is we're going to start talking about getting in and getting out of the system. So transferring those currently in case management. So there were folks that were receiving a case management service that the county that they resided in because it's a private entity or because it's covered by the regional office is no longer basically going to receive a case management service. So we have worked over the last several weeks to all of the IS staff the necessary authorities they need for each regional office and for all of the TCM entities that operate out of their own sort of care for billing, typically billing purposes. So IS folks have a great number of authorities to admit and discharge. Has also been identified that we did, and we're still in the process of fine-tuning. Identify all individuals in the state that meet the Tier 4 criteria. Each staff go into each consumer's episode of care, and they change the program code from case management or to information coordination. Not a responsibility that any regional office should have to take on themselves. We're to do that on their behalf. A couple of it less workload of already overworked regional office staff, but it also allows us to make contact with the family to do as solid a transition as possible. To themselves that they've been transitioned out of case management, that they're in the information specialist system, but they're going to talk to a real person, and that we can let them know various mechanisms by which they can contact us. And finally, we run a report on a monthly basis to determine who has been awarded Medicaid or who has lost Medicaid. So those that are coming in and those who are going out, if they have been awarded Medicaid, we're going to go through the transfer process to move them to support coordination. If they have lost Medicaid, then we're going to identify who they are so that we can make the transition of moving them out of management into information specialist. In and out. So the remainder of the presentation will focus on the processes for each possible transfer scenario. And at the point in time, we identified 7. Hopefully, and maybe after today's presentation, another one will come up. We think we've narrowed it down to 7. So definitions. What is an IS county? So you'll hear us throughout the rest of the transition identify what's an IS county. So IS county, one that does not offer any form of a case management service to individuals who do not have Medicaid. Layman's terms, that's basically what that is. A non-IS county is anyone who is willing to offer a case management service, and maybe not even necessarily a case management service. Some of our partners are providing a similar information specialist service to individuals in their county, regardless of their status with Medicaid. Like I said before, there are 7 possibilities, and I kind of list them off, and then we'll go through in detail each process, and we've identified every role or employee of the division that would be involved in any form of these transfers. So 7 possibilities: transferring from an IS county, so a county that does not provide any form of a service other than information specialist, to IS county within the same region. Transferring from an IS county to IS county between regions. Transferring out of the information specialist system within the originating region. When maybe is awarded, made, or they look to obtain maybe a service through one of our housing projects. Loss of Medicaid transfer. Out of the IS system between regions. Transferring out of case management between regions, and finally transferring out of case management within the originated region. So dive in here to our transfer processes. These are actually not slides, they are actual documents as well. For fee, no. Just for anyone to have, if you need to have something to hold on to look at, they're a point of reference. First transition is IS county transition to another IS county within the same region. What's going to happen? Basically, this is going to be between the IS staff. They're going to update the consumer's episode of care with the most current contact information, name, address, phone number, email address updates, additions or subtractions to consumer resources. Is somebody involved? Is somebody that not involved? We're going to update releases of information for those consumer resources, and we'll forward this signed releases of information to the home or originating regional office client information center to be maintained in the consumer medical record. So not a whole lot of information to be involved. However, if we make adjustments or someone moves, we're going to always notify the originating region so they're up to date on that individual's status. Transferring from IS county to a county between regions. First one you're going to see is that an information specialist role and then client information center, some of us may refer to them as medical record staff. Basically, IS staff will complete the IS transfer document, a transfer form between regions. We updated with the most current demographic information, and we're going to do that a lot. And we have contact with an individual or a loved one, we're going to make sure that we have the most current and accurate demographic information, phone number, address, and consumer resources, and if they are, can we update the release of information so that everything's in place. So staff will compose an email to the medical IC staff of the sending regional office stating the consumer has moved out of their region and the EOC will need to be closed on a specified date. They provide the IS transfer document included in the email, and that the consumer record should be sent to the regional office. And then IS staff will compose a second email, the receiving regional office that includes the transfer document. The body email will detail the date the issue should be opened and advising them that the program code should be information coordination. The roles and the responsibility we would look for from medical record staff, that CIC staff will close the episode of care on the IS transfer date, and that they would send the consumer record, electronic or hard copy, however best, to the receiving regional office, that the regional office would an episode of care on the date for the transfer, that the code would be information coordination, and that the consumer record would be maintained at the regional office. So a quick question came up, which is good to talk about. If a person loses their Medicaid, how much time will they have to get reinstated before the case is transferred? At this point in time, we're going to talk about that a little bit at the end on a tier 4 guidance. What we are requesting is at least 3 months. We not always be able to get that, but what we would like is give the individual or the family 3 months to meet what criteria MhealthNet is asking for to get the Medicaid reinstated. So that was a good question. I thought I'm going to take that. I'm going to go ahead and answer one. Next, transfer to an IS county after the loss of Medicaid within the same region. Okay. So sending TCM, so a county, you've got me that's either by regional office or a targeted case management group that is considered IS. The individual, what we're going to look for is the service coordinator to update demographic section. Again, just making sure that at that moment in time we have the most current demographic information in Seymour. That we're going to complete the information specialist referral document, and it will be forwarded to client to medical records, and then we want that sent to the information specialist email. And the consumer record will be returned to the regional office if it was previously maintained off-site by the private TCM entity. So for regions that individuals had been receiving a case management service and are no longer, that record is coming back either in hard copy or an electronic copy to be stored at the regional office. So what we're looking for from Client Information Center is to close the sending TCM's EOC if they utilize that for billing purposes on the date that's identified on that transfer document, to update the program code, and then obviously to maintain the consumer record. The information specialist gets the referral. We're going to contact that family, and we have some spreadsheets and internal documentation that we use, and we're going to begin to provide resources that are appropriate and work with them in any way we can. These be included in any of the transfer processes? Yes, they will, but we try to utilize only those only the CLCs when it's absolutely necessary. I thank Bradley for participating in with me in the development of these processes, and so he we agreed that we're going to bring the CLCs in when it's necessary, and if it's not, if IS staff can handle it, then we won't. So let's talk about CLC participation. So transfers out of the IS system between regions. Okay, so the following transfer process is going to be followed in this situation. A consumer or responsible party indicates they wish to receive services through a local autism project. If they're awarded a MOCAD slot, it's activated, or if move from IS county, again, a county that does not provide a service, to a non-IS county. So basically 4 options of when this process is going to come into place. Information specialist roles and responsibilities. So IS staff complete the administrative transfer report and transfer document. This is where the MOCAD's waiver has been awarded. We're going to include the approved ISP. And then we're going to forward that packet to TLC for the sending regional office. So that maybe somebody field is working with someone who originates from St. Louis and they're moving to Central Missouri. That can get really confusing. But I think it worked out. So the staff is going to put together that packet, and they're going to send that sending regional office, because this individual is moving between regions and they want to obtain some sort of a service. We're going to look to the community coordinator from the sending regional office. They're going to follow a typical process for transfers, and they're going to transfer contact for the receiving regional office and or the TCM that will be receiving a consumer out of the information specialist system. They've identified kind of a typical, they do that within 3 business days. The C will just respond to the IS staff stating, we've got the email, we've got the transfer, and we're starting the process. C, notify Client Information Center. The files need to be forwarded to the appropriate support coordination supervisor, TCM contact, and upon acceptance from the receiving TCM case management group, CLC will inform CIC staff to send to call the EOC. Final information, the medical records staff from the regional office will provide the consumer record, either loading it onto the FTP system or download it by providing a hard copy. According to whatever arrangements already in existence between the regional office, within 5 days, those the EOC in accordance with the acceptance, and the CIC staff from the region will open the necessary EOCs both for the regional office and for the TCM. And if the TCM, obviously we'll just make sure that that file gets to wherever it needs to go. From targeted case management into the IS system between regions. So transfers will take place in the following situations. If the consumer ceases to receive an active benefit through Mo HealthNet system, if the consumer moves from a non-IS county to an IS county, local TCM ceases to be willing to provide provide management or information specialist service to those consumers who are not actively receiving a Medicaid benefit, and that has moved between regions. So what we're looking at, TCM, CLC, CIC, IS. A lot of abbreviations going on here. Coordinator will initiate the administrative transfer process that is utilized when consumers moves from one TCM regional office to another throughout the region or the state. Administrative transfer document will be completed, forward to the local CLC along with a copy of the most current ISP, as well as information specialist email address. We're asking that when you notify the C, you also provide all of that information to the information specialist email address so that we can process it. And the consumer file will be forwarded to the receiving regional office. Then CLC's roles and responsibilities. The sending CLC will forward the transfer document to the sending CIC, which is medical record staff, informing them that the consumer will be transitioning out of region and that the EOC will need to be closed. That this will forward the transfer document in the ISP to the receiving CLC and request transfer between regions. The receiving CLC will notify their medical record staff to open the EOC on a specified date and to assign the IS program code. Medical staff will close, so from the sending region, they'll close their EOC and for the sending TCM if necessary, and as well as for the sending regional office. Receiving medical record staff will open the EOC, add the IS program code, and the receiving medical record staff will house the consumer's record at the local regional office. And then for IS staff, we're going to do what we typically always do, and that is we're going to obtain it, make contact, work on resources. So a question came in, it's a good place to stop. What form will be used for these transfers? So we're utilizing the transfer form that's already in existence. Information specialists, we didn't want to recreate the wheel. So we're utilizing the transfer document that exists, and then there is a IS referral form that will be available for you. Okay. We're transferring from an IS county, so a county that is willing to provide some sort of service or support to our non-Medicaid folks, to an IS county within the same region. So maybe moved from one county region to another, and one county is an IS county or non-IS county, and the one you're moving into is an IS county. So again, ask the service coordinator to update the demographic sections in Seymour. We're going to ask you to complete the transfer document forwarded to your client information center and to the information specialist. And consumer record will be turned to the regional office if obviously previously maintained offsite by the private entity. The medical records is going to close EOC for the if applicable. They're going to update the program code and maintain the file. And information specialists the information in, make contact, and provide resources. So a question came in from Molly Jackson. To clarify, the TCM will send the transfer request to their local CLC, not to the CLC in the county they are transferring to. So probably what I'm going to do, instead of trying to take more time, I'm going to answer that one in our frequently asked questions to make sure that I fully understand the situation. If that works, because you do not want to kind of dispense misinformation. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next. So that processes. Everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. And there is a method to my madness in developing processes that are that kind of almost redundant and detailed, because we wanted it to be very, very clear for every role and responsibility that's part in any of these functions that's new. And so we wanted to spell it out just as and as clearly as we possibly could, and unfortunately there is a lot of redundancy, but we hoped that the made clear for people to understand what they need to do. So guidance, this is a document that Williams and I created together on just some basic information about TIRCs. Is intent to serve. So and I know that this has gone out statewide. I thought this is just another opportunity, maybe if you haven't seen it, to see it. So agencies who have indicated an intent to serve will receive all referrals. And that's either in transfers or new consumers coming in through the intake and assessment process. These individuals will be assigned to the DD case management code. If that TCM will continue to provide case management services to them. There is also a program called DD Local Information Specialist Code. If your TCM entity is providing information specialist service in the room that you support, you would like to utilize that resource, that program code, we change that. I think it kind of makes people feel better to have that instead of the case management code. We're glad to facilitate that. And I realize that probably after this, I'm going to get hit with a lot of emails. If you want that, that's great. We will do it. Just we'll go through the process of making sure that transfer happens. So number 2 is no intent to serve. So Intake Client Information Center will assign these individuals to DD Information Coordination Code. TCM agencies previously indicated their intent to serve, but now rejects referrals. So sometimes regional office TAC will follow up with any TCM entity that determines the conditions of rejected referrals. It indicates that they will not continue to serve current individuals, will conserve current individuals, but will not accept new referrals. Intake and Client Information Center will send new referrals to the DD Information Coordination. So maybe some of our partners say, well, we'll keep the ones we've got, but we really can't take new ones. If that's the case, we'll proceed in this manner. If the TCM agency indicates that they will no longer serve anybody that's considered a Tier 4 individual, we're going to apply those individuals in writing regarding the change to serve. And the individual requests discharge, then they can process that, and that they'll follow the current discharge process. If the individual wishes to remain active, they'll be transitioned from current services and assigned to the information code. Record set, if that happens, will always be returned to the regional office. So regional office's medical records will be either receiving physical copies. A lot of agencies are going to electronic, but the record set will come back, and that's a change in policy, just having some place to store them. The regional office will report all changes in intent to serve to the TSAC statewide lead for tracking purposes. So if a local regional office hears that a community partner isn't going to be able to provide that level of support anymore, then we're going to ask that you contact CARE or their statewide lead so that we can track that. Processes for changing codes in CMOR for those individuals transition from case management services. This is effective 7/1. TCMs with an intent to serve will continue to provide case management services to all assigned individuals. No further action. Business as usual. TCM agencies with the intent to serve but not as case management or intent to serve will follow these processes. This is what we'll ask you to do. With the intent to serve but not as case management, TCM provider will provide the regional office TAC with a list of individuals who are Medicaid with no DD funded services. The TCM TAC will provide the list from each agency to the information specialist statewide lead, that would be me, so that I facilitate getting your program codes changed and can identify kind of that transition process. TCM agencies and regional office support coordinators with no intent to serve and specialist statewide lead, we run our designated report. We run it on a monthly basis to ensure that we have everybody. We're doing everything that we can to not have people fall through the cracks. But those that are coming in, those that are going out, making sure that all the appropriate transfers are taking place. TCM entities, agencies with no intent to serve will turn the official record set back to the regional office. I realize that I'm saying things that are redundant, but we just continue to say them as clearly as we can so that we leave less and less room for confusion because one likes to not know what they need to do. Then state-operated psychiatric hospitals. So there's some still going on about this, so I'm not going into this a great deal. Just take a look at it and be prepared to see